Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Stream live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommy Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis, and I'm the president and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation, and I'm joined this morning by my good friend and brother,
Tommy Lewis, president and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. Good morning, Eric.
Woo! Good morning, Tommy.
Woo!
How are you?
I'm great. Full of laughs.
Oh, my goodness, man. Y'all missed the pre-show. We had a ball. We just falling out of our seats.
Oh, my goodness.
And we got our hope back up because of this last week.
Yep.
Boy, there's a lot of trauma that we went through in this country. And we're going to talk about that this morning later on. But Tommy, let's start with how was your week, man?
So I had a good week, Eric.
Last 2 weeks.
Yeah, last 2 weeks. Thank you. Working with a client in Ohio, the Ohio Developmental Disabilities Council.
Okay.
I mentioned that before. We're working with them and creating their community outreach plan.
Okay.
And a part of their strategic plan. And the Developmental Disabilities Council, they serve those individuals and families across the state who have any type of disability, not just mental developmental disability, but anything from visually impaired to blind to audibly impaired, etc. So we were working with them, and the good news is that we were starting to create the strategic plan and the community plan.
Okay.
And we paused to get more input from the 40 or 50 council members.
Kudos to you.
And so we thought that was very important. And we learned a lot, right? One thing we learned, Eric, was we were actually developing a plan going in the wrong direction.
Okay. Wow.
Right? And so the second thing is that we think is, we need to, when developing plans, et cetera, keep the end user in mind.
Okay.
Right?
Absolutely.
Keep the client in mind, keep the employees or the labor force in mind, keep the community in mind, and not just in mind, but participating. Right?
Absolutely.
And so that was a good thing there. And then the other good news, Eric, is that we're very, very excited at Make It Plain Consulting to be working on a regional and national project. For those who are less familiar, there are a number of bridges, but one main bridge that connects Ohio to the state of Kentucky.
Right.
And we have won the opportunity to ensure that women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses participate on this project that's about 8 to 10 years.
Excellent, Tom.
So if you are out there in the state of Ohio, in the state of Indiana, in the state of Kentucky, and you are a woman-owned business, construction, it can be electrical, mechanical, concrete, it can be catering.
Okay.
Because we have to provide food every day.
Excellent.
Throughout the state of these 3 states, please, please, please let us know, inbox us. Our job is to ensure that you and your company grows. We're excited about this opportunity. The press has been on it already. And then nationally, this is a national transportation opportunity that your small minority woman-owned business may get exponential growth in the next few years. So we need your support. So we're excited about that.
Man, Tommy, I am so proud of you, man. Congratulations on that win, because a win for Make It Plain is a win for all of us, because Make It Plain makes this community better. And Tommy is invested not just in his own success, but in your success. He's told me about that. We've celebrated together the winning of that contract, but I just heard something new today about their push for women-owned businesses. And my mind started going immediately to, because we need door openers right now in the environment where people are feeling as though at times you can almost feel like it's hopeless. to have somebody who is specifically out there standing at the door of opportunity and has it flung wide open for women. Now, I'm a man. Do you think that I'm mad that women, marginalized women-owned businesses are going to get an opportunity? Heck no. So it makes no sense to be upset about somebody getting an opportunity who's been left out so much because of their gender. So those of you that are out there opposing DEI efforts because you think they focus on somebody else, you have to really take a look at what's happening in our country and be excited when these opportunities come along that are targeted for people who have structurally been left behind. So yes, I'm grateful to hear that, Tommy. Tommy, as I think about my last 2 weeks, certainly a lot has happened. The Urban League had a press conference just really launching their State of Black Cincinnati, and Tommy and I worked together on the inclusion portion of that report. And we were just glad to get that done because there was a lot of work involved, but there's a lot of learning that's going on. A lot of people's eyes were open around the challenges that we have in our country. I mean, in our city. If you look at, we did the inclusion survey in 2015 and in 2024. And so things have improved slightly, but they're still not good. And so we just highlighted some of those things and shared a number of recommendations for the Urban League around things that should be considered in order to bring about parity, the journey toward parity. And one of the things that we offered in there as a recommendation is that the Urban League serve as a facilitator, a convener of best practices, not only here in this community, but across the country. Because what we're going to say to you is today, we're going to focus on not only the debate that President Biden and former President Trump just had. We're going to be talking about what's in store for us as a nation as we look forward. And I would suggest to you, and Tommy and I would offer for you, that this notion of waiting on the government to save us makes no sense at all. We have to begin to look back towards ourselves and other people and organizations of goodwill. So that's what we would say to you about that. I also just came back from SHRM. Judy and I both had a chance to present at the National SHRM Conference in Chicago, Illinois. And we just had a ball being there. We didn't make it to a whole lot of other sessions. We did ours on day one, but it was really quite a thrill. One of the interesting parts of the SHRM conference is that Jason Siddiqui was supposed to be one of the early keynote speakers, and he blew off SHRM, his keynote address, and then was on camera at the WNBA game.
Oh my God.
Right there in Chicago, Tommy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he came to Chicago, but then instead of coming to do his keynote address, he went to the game to watch Caitlin Clark. Oh. There was nothing but pictures just flying all around. I hope he don't need no HR help.
Yeah.
Because if he's ever in trouble, he's not going to get support from the HR leader. So that was the first thing that was hilarious. And then I had a sister tell me, she came to my book signing. She says, I got to be transparent with you. And so I said, yeah, no problem at all. She said, now she works as the director of equity for Chicago Transit Authority. And she says to me, she said, Eric, when I came to your session, she said, I was hoping for a sharp, compelling white male to be the facilitator. She said, and then when you came in the room, she said, to be honest with you, I was disappointed. I mean, she just told me that time.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the sister that said she's disappointed when the black guy comes in the room. I said, ooh, if we lose the sisters, we got nobody.
Yeah.
And so she said, almost as soon as you opened your mouth, she said, I was like, oh my goodness, he's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
And she and I talked for an hour and a half. And she said, I was thinking, I'm going to bum rush the stage. I'm going to get in front of everybody because this guy is what we need. And I just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed, Tommy. And I'm going to tell you all this. We have to be able to laugh at things that are just funny.
Yeah.
And I just appreciated it. I told her, I said, I'm going to laugh for the whole rest of the day. And I'm going to laugh throughout the week. I'll be thinking about a sister thinking when I came in the room, oh, Lord. And the reality is Tommy and I know that you have all kind of strategic objectives, right?
Yeah.
And you know you're trying to move the needle with the white male executives. And so you're hopeful that you can find a strong, articulate white male that might be able to speak their language. And when you see somebody that's not that, it's an honest thing to say that, I was hoping for something else. I put a post up in my social media, but I added at the end of it, Tommy, that I told my middle son, I said, look, I'm going to start sending you a cash app of $25 every time I make a prejudgment about you. And he was like, what? Okay, whatever, Dad. I mean, I said, look, I'm trying to help myself to get better, because what I was noticing is that sometimes we as parents might prejudge our children. And honestly, Tommy, there is a lot more prejudgment that's going on in my mind than I even say.
Yep.
So even if I don't say it to him, I've already made the story up, believed it, I already proved it out in my brain. And then when you discover that you were wrong, you're like, oh man, that was horrible. And so I sent him $25 a couple times. And then I did it with my youngest son. I said the same thing to him, sent him a text. I said, he sent back a text saying, I'm going to be rich. I said, like, you do that so much, I'm about to be rich. And I just laughed and laughed. So I'm telling you all, Tom and I love what we do, but we cannot be successful or effective if we are not honest that bias is a human condition and all people have bias, not just white people, not just the former president, but all of us have bias. And unless you are working on your stuff on a daily basis, we as a country, as a people, as a world aren't getting better.
Funny story. It resonates with me, Eric. Just 2 days ago, myself, my wife, and my son were having dinner.
Right.
And we're having dinner and we're talking about Make It Plain has a couple of new interns. And one of the interns, her style of work right now is just not gelling with me. Right. And my wife says, Tommy, you're just hard on people, right? And I get defensive quickly.
Right. Well, yeah.
No. I don't get. I'm
Can't
not
take that
hard on
way
people.
now.
Not at all. First of all, I don't judge people. Second, I'm not hard on people. Third, I give people a lot of leeway. And Bryce, what do you think? Dad, you're hard on people. Oh my gosh. He says. He just a minute. He and my wife just started giving me the right act. And what Bryce said was, he says, Dad, there are particular personality types that you prefer. And I said, okay, there is.
Right.
Eric, I have judgment on certain personality types. And Bryce did come back and said, you're entrepreneurial, you have an entrepreneurial mind. So what that means is that for 30 years at least, my mind of get up and go get it. Right. I, like you, Eric, we work hard. Always and constantly.
Going to get it.
Yeah, it's not a matter of just going into work and knowing that you're going to get paid.
Right. No.
No.
You eat what you kill.
You eat what you kill. So some folks don't realize that. Right.
It just keeps coming for them.
So when we're hiring folks and they show up,
that's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And so I drive them to, efficiency, productivity, etc.
I'm going to need a little more than that.
And I laughed because I know they're right about it. One. And two, I am trying to work on myself and my own judgmental bias around people. Again, we just had interviews there. People who say I'm a hard worker and they're talking to me. Right. I close the story here.
You have to qualify that.
There's one thing I said that I shouldn't have said during one of the interviews. Right. And this is a private company. Right. So the young intern, potential intern said the the interview was at 9 o'clock. And she said, I'm a hard worker. As you see, I got here 15 minutes before the interview. I said, that's excellent. Excellent. Have you worked a 40-hour week before? She says, no, I haven't. I said, this is potentially a 40-hour week. It will not be over 40 hours. She said, I know, but I'm a hard worker. I get up early and I go. And I paused and I said, what time do you think I got here today?
Yeah, what's early?
Yeah. And she said, probably 8 o'clock. I said, no, love, 6 o'clock, right? I had work to do before scheduling this interview. I got here at 6 o'clock. So I'll wake up at 5.
Enthusiastic and doing that work.
Oh, there's I told her, no telephone was ringing, no sirens outside.
And I'm in love.
I am doing it. That was my own judgmental bias. That when I hear people say I'm a hard worker, I have to arrest my own judgment, right? Own judgment. So we can go back and forth. It can be relative. It can be, whatever the case may be. But I would say that the last 2 weeks have been something else. But congratulations, Eric, on Chicago and Sherm, you and Judy. And I'm just very interested in what's going to happen with our celebrity who kind of
Ted Lasso. That's his TV name. All of us like the Ted Lasso show. We like that. But yeah, that was bold, man. Just to kind of blow it off, to go to the WNBA game and people taking pictures all over the place and passing them all around about you blowing them off, not being sick, not being ill, not being in the hospital somewhere.
He was paid to be there.
Yeah.
His travel.
Signed a contract.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And sure, he may be able to say, you can have your $50,000 back.
Right.
Or whatever it is. But the flight, ground transportation, hotel, maybe even a per diem, and a speaker's fee. It's going to give back the speaker's fee unless they sue, right? Which can be a garbled mess.
Right. So that was, and then I got more exercise than I wanted because the McCormick Center was forever long. And as Tommy knows, I'm preparing for my knee replacement surgery. Boy, I was just, but I was not alone. Even the young people were writing, this was too big. This place is too big. I was literally mapping out what sessions I would go to based on their distance. Like, nope, I can't go to that one. That's way over yonder. I'm not going to make it. I was literally looking for me a little electric cart. I never thought I'd get to the point. I'm looking for a little electric cart, man, so I can just scoot on around, man. I was going to trick it out so you can see where I'm headed. If the knee thing don't work out, I'm going to have a tricked out go-kart. It's going to be a hot ride. I'm headed like this. Like,
whoa, here comes Eric.
Yeah, hey, what up, people? I can stand for about 5 minutes. Hold on, I'll stand. Okay?
All right. Back in
that car. I ain't waiting on nobody to push me around, Tommy. This world ain't helpful. The world ain't helpful, Tommy. You better cover yourself. I got me a big van outside. I just drive up the ramp. I'm prepared, bro. I will not be in an old wheelchair. Even though I need to, it's like keep the arms, you do the wheelchair. Then when I give you a business handshake, I can squeeze all the life out your hand and everything. But no. I'm gonna have me tricked out. I've been dreaming about 3-wheelers, 2 wheels in the front. I'm gonna get me a scooter with 2 wheels in the front and 1 in the back. Nothing about it's gonna look old.
Nothing.
I have me a cooler on the side. Give me a couple gold peaks, 0 gold peak tees in there.
You said, Eric, nothing about you, nothing about us gonna look old.
No. I'm golfing from there and everything. Go right to the. I have me a little custom thing for my golf club. This thing will hold it. And maybe even an electric arm. Just go and give me the club. I get up. I get up, hit my ball. Go on, scoot on down to the next hole. We are not going to be aging out. Nothing about us. Age is a state of mind. And so you cannot let yourself just be, into the stereotype.
No.
Because we know the world is not kind to older people, infirm, disabled, all those things. We teach against it, but we know the world is still living there. So we just gonna go with the flow, right? With the waves. But what we'd like to talk about today is we're going to talk about the debate. I don't know how many of you watched it, but they were watching around the world, and some people were describing it as a catastrophe, a bitastrophe. I mean, they just all kind of names all over the world. But before I get there, I want to review the last conversation that I had in the States before I went to Chicago. I was in the barbershop with my good friend Tim, and we're gonna do a show from his barbershop downtown Cincinnati when we start up again in August. Tommy and I are going to announce to you that this is our last show for through the month of July. We're just going to take that time off to recoup, recover, vacation, spend time with the family, and then we're going to be fully recharged in August when we come back. And hopefully we're going to come back from the barbershop in downtown Cincinnati. I'll tell you, I was there, Tommy, last week, and I was in there, and my barber sees me as his mentor, and he had a couple of his nephews that were in there, and I was talking to them, and then they started talking about why they were voting for former President Trump. And so I listened to them, and they called Biden a Zionist, and they were not without information. We assume so often that they're without information, but they basically, and I'll tell you another thing that we underrate is the impact of the part of our community that has been beat up, slapped around, and smacked down by the justice system for decades. The impact that has on them. The unfairness of your parole officer being able to send you back at any time, for you getting charged, getting bound over from teenage to adult, just in all kind of arbitrary, unjust ways, what that does to your psyche. And so when a person like that sees former President Donald Trump thumbing his nose at the Justice Department, name-calling judges, cussing them out, coming out every day after the trial and calling them corrupt and everything else, we have no idea. Those of us that have not interacted with the justice system in that way have no idea how impactful that is to people who have been roughed up and beat up by the justice system. The other thing that was interesting to me is that they knew that former President Trump had contributed a lot of money to historically Black colleges and universities. They were aware of that. They called Biden a Zionist because they think that what he's doing, helping Israel, is tantamount to a genocide. And so they had some reasons. But then I started giving them other things to think about. I was saying, well, now let's look at it. President Trump is a felon like you, but he can be president of the country and you can't even vote. And they looked at that and said, oh, man, why is that? I said, look at who he gave tax breaks to. He gave tax breaks to the wealthiest individuals and corporations in this country. You're not likely to get any of that. And we just went on and on about what he's going to do in the Justice Department, how they want to reframe all of that. So you'll probably be getting locked up for longer times. And we just went on, man. And we were debating. And my barber was trying to get his nephew and them to shut up and listen to me. I said, no, bro. They must speak because I need to hear their voices as well. And they ended up telling me, Tommy, I've never heard anybody like you in my life. And even though I'm talking, I'm listening and I'm learning. And I said to them, I said, I know the feeling, Tommy. Whenever I get around people that I really admire, I'll overtalk sometimes too, because I'm so excited to meet somebody that I respect and I value, and they're saying some powerful things that I want them to know me. And so I have to sit on my hands sometimes and say, okay, Eric, calm down. I know you like this person. This person's making so much sense and you want them to know who you are. I told him, I said, I get that. He said, man, I appreciate the fact that you hear me. And they'd have a side argument. I'd tell my brother, hold on, man, hold on. Let him say what he want to say. And he told me, he said, you know, and my barber told me after they left, he said, Eric, he hasn't spoken in almost 3 years. He said he doesn't even talk anymore. And he told me, and he had a little brown bag, so he had that bottle. So his nephew's nephew was there, and his nephew's nephew was saying, when I became homeless, he took me in. He took me into a trap house, but they cared for me. So he was either homeless or be in this trap house, which was a community. And then the nephew said, he's in his 40s. He said, Mr. Ellis, he said, I shot my gun up into the air. He said, and the bullet came down and killed my baby girl. He said, so that's why I've been drinking so much. It's because I can't forgive myself. And so I told him, I said, look, man, I said, God has forgiven you. I said, you must forgive yourself. I said, your baby is in heaven. She's fine. She's in heaven. And you cannot allow the enemy to rob you of the rest of your productive life. And Tommy, I realized then that it's so necessary for you and I to not just take care of our families and teach the world, but whenever possible, man, we've got to be there. What we know is that for Black people, 90% of Black poor live in a ghetto. For white people, only 10% of white poor live in a ghetto, and 90% lived in mixed income neighborhoods. So if you're Black and you're living in a ghetto, unfortunately, too often, all you learn is other strategies to perpetuate poverty.
Absolutely.
If you're white poor and you're living in a neighborhood where you watching people get up, go to work, and all kind of other things, then you can assimilate more quickly, and you have some role models around you. So I really do believe that we've got to look at how we dismantle this poverty structure that has us locked into places where we have to care for each other. We never see the other Black people and others who are doing things. They've gone on and left us.
Yep.
And so and that's why we want to do our next show, possibly from the barbershop.
There are a number of resources out there for those who are interested in understanding a couple of things. One, the psychological impact of slavery and enslavement on peoples, period.
Right.
Not just African Americans, not just Africans, but all peoples.
That's right.
So that's one, the psychological impact of enslavement. The other is that there's research and books around the ghettoization of America. It talks about the individual psychology of what poverty does, how poverty behaves, how poverty then, from a personal perspective, Eric, moves into a system, right? The system of poverty. So we do know, and data shows, as well as the most recent, the state of Black Cincinnati, that oftentimes, health care or access to health, access to progressive and modern education, not just education. We're not just studying 1950s and 60s. We're talking about progressive and modern education. Also, access to simply nutrition, right? Good food. All of those can be tenement to a zip code.
Right.
So when we look at ghettos, ghettos are, put in particular communities. Funding is limited, right? Or there's some disparity there. And so from a systemic perspective, there is systemic poverty.
Right.
Then it moves into the structure. How is the society structured to continue to sustain poverty? So if you have 90% of African Americans who are impoverished in the ghetto, 10% of whites are in the ghetto, but the other 90% is in mixed incomes. The question is, structurally, one question is, how does that happen? Right. The other question is, what are all peoples doing to eradicate poverty?
Right.
Short answer is not enough.
Right.
If at all. There's some people in power, they're not doing anything.
Right.
And so I will say this too, talking about our young brothers, I won't even say young brothers, our brothers in the barbershop, that the art of debate,
right,
historically, is when there's a cultural transformation and a mental or educational transformation.
right.
So oftentimes when we, particularly Black men, when we get into a debate, it is to serve as a sounding board of our thinking.
Woo!
Eric. So
Absolutely.
that's why we get into the talking
Right.
when we're engaging with someone that has some powerful thinking.
Right.
We're actually attracted to it.
That's right.
And I want to spar
Right.
with our mind.
Right. Because I know I'm sharp.
I know I'm sharp.
And typically my experience is that people that look like you and come from where you don't respect that.
Indeed.
So that's a part of it.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting here saying, do. So first of all, I'm a man too.
Yep. Mano y mano.
But then the difference is do. No. Come on, baby. Let him go.
Let's go.
Let him do his thing. That's a good point.
Yep.
Ain't used to that. I'm not so caught up in this that I'm trying to win.
Ooh.
I'm saying, oh man, that's a good point right there. I agree with that.
Yep.
So I scream that out so you hear I agree.
Yep.
I thought we was debating. And I thought you didn't respect where I come from, or who I am, or what I've done. He said, Mr. Ellis, I can take you into any neighborhood that you need to go into. He said, I'm respected all across this city. And I told him about the thing that I was trying to do, the business of urban transformation, where I said, look, I don't really care about people's dope dealing. That's not what I'm after. I know that for many people, that's the way that they've had to survive. I said, I'm tired of us killing each other. And they said, I'm tired of it too. And so it was a beautiful thing. It was a powerful thing. God has put us on earth for a reason. And then after I left, my barber told me, he said, Eric, he said, I had never heard the story of him killing his daughter that way. He said, and he hasn't said anything in years. He said, that's the first time he's come out of his shell like that. And he was a musician too, Tommy. And I love our people.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that God has put the hearts in both of us that care deeply about our people wherever they are. Because I'm going to tell you this, that if you can't find some love and some concern, some interest in the least of these, then how can you justifiably sit back and say that you want somebody to fight against racism that's affecting you? If you can't provide compassion, love, opportunity, and counsel for those that have less than you, then I think that puts into question what you deserve from those who control more than you do. So I was grateful for the experience. We're going to do that in August. But we want to use this last half hour to talk about the debate. Oh my goodness. It was billed as the Ali Frazier 4. Ali showed up. No, it was Frazier, and Frazier won, and it was, Tommy, I want you to start by just giving your thoughts about seeing this debate that we knew the whole world was watching. It was, there was so much, that each of these men hate about the other, that we were looking forward to this as a Rocky Balboa kind of thing. What did we see?
Well, first, I got to give a shout out to my son, who the day before the debate had asked me, was I going to watch the Thriller in the nursing home? And I fell out of my chair. Right. Not the Thriller in Manila. That was the fight, right? Ali, but the Thriller in the nursing home.
They were hitting each other with plastic jugs
and screaming and hollering about meds. Right. This is no disrespect for our seniors, because we absolutely respect them.
Right.
But the night of the debate, when it's set up, Eric, such that, first of all, there's no crowd, no audience.
Right.
So it's really just kind of a background and skill versus background and skill.
Yep.
And the reason why I say that, because as public speakers, and those who are in drama, things like that. The energy of the crowd can move you into heights that you otherwise would not be in.
Absolutely. Right.
They can lift you.
Right.
And if there's a lot of booze, etc., that also can lift you if you're a competitor.
Right.
When folks are just booing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. Yeah.
But when you are speaking in an echo chamber,
an empty room,
and no one's there, then it's just you and, in this case, him.
Right.
And so these two seasoned elderly gentlemen came walking out, different styles.
Yep.
One was just trying to make it to the podium.
Yep.
And he was having a good go of it, but he got there, Eric, and whoa, man.
Woo, I'm here.
Right. I'm here. Right. The other, I believe he didn't know, but he shared a lie during his soliloquy that he is as fit today as he was 30 years ago.
Right.
But when he came out, it was apparent that he's had a few
extra cheeseburgers.
Extra cheeseburgers. Right? And again, this is not body shaming.
Right.
This is not doing any of that.
Right.
I'm just giving my kind of my testimony here. So they come out, and we have a format for the debate. And Eric, really, the first words that came out of Biden's mouth,
painful.
It was painful.
It was painful.
And I just look, as a speaker, Eric.
Right.
Behind the scenes, what we do is hydrate. So if at anything, every now and again.
Right. I had to have my water in Chicago.
Because I'm going to come out, clear my throat. It does, subdue some nerves. So when I come out, I'm not cracking. The volume was low.
Right.
The voice was cracked.
Absolutely.
Right. In fact, Eric, I thought,
is he going to make it past the first question?
It's going to be a long night. It's going to be a long night.
Right.
It's going to be a long night. And I was watching the debate with my wife, and my son was down in the basement. And by the middle of the debate, my son comes running up, Bryce, talking about, "Are you all watching this?"
Like, this is, oh my goodness.
Eric, look, we can go back and forth on it, but I thought that it was ultimately an absolutely dismal performance for the current and active president of the United States of America, and for our former president of the United States of America. He really doubled and tripled down on the half-truths, untruths, and lies. Right. At no discretion.
No, none at all.
Are you going to believe me or your lying eye?
Right.
He kept saying it. So it was a debacle.
Yeah, and he's got something that he didn't have 4 or 8 years ago. He has literally, the power of his words has shifted the mindset and the beliefs of over half of the citizens in this country. He is an entertainer. He's always known that most of life is about what people see and the story that you tell them. If you keep telling them that story over and over again, he was a master of that night. And so what I saw.
Let me ask you this real quick, even what you just said. So Trump has the power of the microphone, the power of the gavel, if you will, right? And then you have his base and others who are agreeing and or following him. I watch a lot of news reels, different things all over the place. I love diversity, right? So I agree with her or not. Do you believe that Trump is kind of informing his base of what to think, or do you think that his base has been piecemealing information and Trump hears it and then agrees, say, that's the direction my base is going, I will double down on that?
That's good. Both. Yeah, so I think it's both. I think that he's a master of being informed around the things that they care about, because what we heard before Trump was president was that the people in this country who felt the most discriminated against were white people. he jumped on that. And so he started saying things that lined up with, you are being discriminated against. The Mexicans are coming across the borders. Black people and others are blaming you and shaming you. This is your country. We're going to make America great again. And so he was a master of dog whistles that line up with what their beliefs are. And so people, they never even realized how much they were in need of a savior, if you will. Now, I'm not going to just throw everybody in that one bucket. I know there are some people that really do fundamentally believe that the former president was better for the economy, that he cared about this country, that he made our allies, pull their weight, if you will. But when I looked at that debate, Tommy, when I came out of it, it was almost just discouragement. Yeah. Because what we saw was Joe Biden, who is a man. I see Joe Biden as an older man who loves this country, who is patriotic to his last cell in his body, who is trying to do honest, honorable things. He has had nothing to do with Trump's legal battles. And Trump has now said all of that was a Biden weaponized Justice Department. I saw him struggling to stand up, struggling to speak, struggling to remember where he was. We heard people say that Trump was going to be, not having a live audience was going to have the greatest impact on Trump. Yeah. And I think what we saw is that not having an audience had the greater impact on President Biden. Because I think at his age, he gets energy and he gets life and he gets encouragement out of people because he lives to serve people. And so when you're looking into an empty hallway, then in many ways, I think he just lost his train. You know how it is, Tommy, when we're sitting here by ourselves with the camera. Yeah, absolutely. You know, seconds are going by. You got to say something that's quick, witty. And he was just getting lost in that. And it took him over an hour. I mean, the first hour, he was stopping, starting. He'd be talking about one thing and then just end on, I'm glad we ended Medicare. What? Yeah. You know? Yeah. And then Trump was comfortably lying the entire way. Trump said things like he provided 10,000 soldiers, made those available, which he did not. That was something else that happened at some other time. But it didn't happen on January 6th. He talked about them as J6 hostages. Trump said that everybody was clamoring for the overturn of Roe versus Wade. Roe v. Wade. So, he just told lies the entire night. And so we come out of this. I know me, I've been one who's been saying that I thought Biden was going to squeak it out. And then after that night, I said, he can't make it. Yeah. There's no way that he can run looking like that and sounding like that and not being able. He's worse off than he was a few weeks ago. I'll tell you, but what's interesting, and I'm going to kick it back to you, Tommy, is that night, 67% of people said that Trump won. And I would agree with that. In other words, a smooth lie looks much better than a stammering truth. And you're looking at how can you lead this country if you can't really put it all together. Now, the next day, he had a rally and he was a different Joe Biden. Yeah. It was like he got some rest and he sounded great. He was inspired by the audience and they were really cheering for him. But the polls said, the morning after polls said that 45% of the nation supports Trump and 45% of the nation supports Biden. And so we're still going to have a duel. And Tommy, you and I, we're going to talk a little bit more about the debate, but I think that we've come to a new conclusion. And you've put it forth. Tommy has said that in many ways, it's going to be, Biden has to start talking about ruling the country or leading the country from committee. In other words, no president ever leads by themselves. They have a whole team around them that helps them get the job done. So what we said is that they ought to lean into the fact that he is older. He's a grandfather. Let's let President Joe Biden be America and the world's grandfather. In other words, we do not put our grandparents out to pasture when they are struggling, when they're walking with a slower gait. They still have the wisdom that has come across decades of living. President Biden has more knowledge and more sort of diplomacy on the world stage in his baby finger than Trump has in his whole entire body. Do you want somebody who is deceiving you quickly to the edge, who has vowed retribution to his enemies? All the values that we say we stand for as a country, how in the world are we going to turn our back on those things because a lie sounds sweet?
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right, Eric. Leading by committee, that's one. I think another opportunity is that when we think of leadership, we want to think of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Some may say to be tough, right? But bullies, when they get hit in the mouth, are no longer bullies.
Right.
I would not recommend that this country, as great as it is already and has been and will be, should lead with the bully baton.
Right.
From the world.
Right.
And so with Biden, Grandpa Joe.
Right. That's right.
We do respect those who hold onto our historical biography.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we recognize veterans the way we do.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to World War I.
Right.
With the few that are still with us.
Right.
Definitely World War II, Vietnam War, etc. We recognize and appreciate the old country for which our current people come from.
Right.
The old country of Europe, the old country of Ireland, the old country of Italy. All of these old countries, including Mexico and others who are much older than the United States, we honor, maybe not publicly, but definitely in our communities, the old country.
Right.
And so when we think about Biden holding on to our historical biography, it's let's continue for what the old country has helped us do to move into the new and better country.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I would say to you that are we willing to vote in a former president that refers to our veterans, those that have died and gone before us, as suckers and losers, lies about that, or he dogged out McCain as weak and a loser because he got captured, and then he never served the military himself. And so the thing is, I don't have anything to say about President Trump's policies and all like that, and aren't you interested in the policies? Because I actually think he struggles there. But I think that if you are willing to sell out our country to Russia, to North Korea, to our enemies for your own personal benefit, that's wrong. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of other ways to look at how the former president has operated. And we keep making excuses for his lack of integrity, sleeping with another woman while his wife is pregnant. I mean, the nation's willing to look past some of those things, but you lied the whole way about all of those things. I think that right now, it is time for us as a country to stand up, stand next to our value system, and even get ready for President Kamala Harris. How can we sit back and act as though she can't do the job of two 80-year-olds who have committees working for them? The other thing I would encourage those of you that are on the fence trying to decide what you want to do, and I think that it's going to be an election of your own conscience, and I'm going to love you and care deeply about you no matter who you vote for. But I would encourage you to take a look at the 2025 plan. It's out online everywhere. It's the Republican plan for how they're going to lead differently on day one in 2025 if President Trump is the president. It's a 960-page document that's done by the Heritage Foundation, but probably over 100 other conservative think tanks. Now, let me say to you that the word conservative is a loaded word because people of color, talking about African Americans, Hispanic, Latin Americans are conservative people groups, actually. And so when you read the plan, a part of that will feel compelling to you because you are conservative. The only problem is that it actually isn't for you or about you. It is, in fact, against you. They want to get rid of everything that speaks of an egalitarian, pluralistic, and diverse country. All of those things, they want to root those things out. They are talking about in that plan, eliminating the education department. They are talking about restructuring the Justice Department. They're talking about firing maybe 50,000 government workers to replace them with pre-vetted MAGA sort of extremists and conservatives to take over all those jobs so that they can shift the country backwards and in the direction of European Americans and not in the direction of the whole of what America is. And so they want to empower the president if the president is Republican. They do not want Biden to have that same power. And so right now we've seen them line up with the Supreme Court, and if they can take over all of these departments and never have to put forth leaders for senatorial approval, they won't even do that. They'll just put them in as temporary. But now that they've been there before, they know exactly what to go after in order to make less opportunities available for people that are diverse. And so I'm concerned about that for our country.
Eric, what you just shared was powerful for me. Just to listen to that, I'm interested in reading that. I'm familiar with the Heritage Foundation and their bend, et cetera, et cetera. Just a high level question. Based on what you just shared and what we know, our community knows as well, I can sense the divisiveness in this country widening. I really can.
Right.
From a philosophical perspective, absolutely a political perspective, and a social, racial, gender, economic perspective as well. I can see that widening. I can also envision, or I can speculate, that at one time this country was going through some divisiveness that led to a civil war. Now, I'm not one to just throw out, we're heading toward a civil war.
Right.
I'm not that one.
Right.
But I was just thinking when you were talking, I wonder, for the 50 or so plus years prior to the Civil War, the human beings, the American citizens in this country, what were they thinking? And then we have the explosion or implosion of this war. Again, we had people, citizens here. Some were involved with the political system. Some were involved with the economic system, right? Some were not involved with either.
Right.
But then this country exploded. If you're talking about what you're just talking about, I can see, Eric, I can see in 20, 25, 30 years, this debate that didn't start yesterday, it started years ago, right? I can see it coming to a head.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tommy, that's a great question. Here's what I would say to you, that people oftentimes are easily deceived by narratives that are said over and over and over again. So in this country, we had slavery, 1619 to 1863. And so what happens is, if you have 247 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow, then people's mindsets in this country were established, initiated from the fact of, you, person of color, we rescued you from the jungles of Africa. We brought you to this country. You are less than equal to us. You were naked and in diapers over there. We brought you here, gave you 3 hots and a cot, taught you how to work. So that was the mentality of people, because it was said over and over again. They're less than 3/5 of a person and all like that. So those are the things then that you grow to believe. And I think that we are in the same place now, that if people keep saying things over and over again, depicting you, then there will be that divide. Here is the anecdote. I'm going to give it to you right now, and I'm certain that this is the anecdote. The anecdote is relationship and love over hate, good over evil. Do not allow yourself to be consumed into a fight that has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the enemy. And what you've got to recognize is that no matter what kind of rhetoric that's coming at you from our political candidates, you do not hate the people or despise the people that support the opponent. You don't, because the thing that snaps them out of it, the thing that brings them back, is love and relationship. So as you reach out, this is the key right now. It's not about hating Trump at all. It's not about hating the MAGA crowd at all. It's about loving people and developing meaningful relationships, and know that together we are stronger than we are apart. And so right now, what I know, and I'm going to say this to you with boldness, that when we wake up the day after this election, it ultimately really will not matter who the president is. That we as the people of color have been the most resilient people on earth. So do not worry about what tomorrow holds, because I know who holds tomorrow, and we will navigate and survive whatever happens, especially if we live it out with integrity, with high character and love.
Yeah, well said, Eric. No one could have said it better. God be with us, continue to be with us, that we do not control, manage, or dictate tomorrow. It's already predestined, right? And I would say, to add, if we look at this overall scheme of things, that our lives are just a small blip.
That's right.
On the radar.
That's right.
Very, very small. So we can say, over the last 78 years, 82 years, 99 years, yeah, and trust me, over time, you too will be forgotten, right?
That's right.
So yes, our moment, our 15 minutes or 15 seconds of fame are here.
That's right.
But if we look at some dynasties, 2,500 years,
right?
This young country, less than 1,000. It's a blip. It's a blip.
That's right.
It's just right now we are receiving information, and we have either our own gall to speak, right, or we have the venue to amplify whatever we would like to amplify, be it good or bad.
Right.
If I hear you correctly, Eric, this is going to be a matter of good over evil.
That's right.
We know historically that good has always prevailed.
Right.
Always. That's how he's designed it, right?
The time frame, we don't know.
Don't know.
But what we do know is I ran ahead and I read the end of the book, and it says we win. And so I'd say to young people who are angry at President Biden right now because of what is happening in the Middle East, I understand your pain. I empathize with that. I would say my number one post about what's happening in the Middle East is support the innocent. We all think that what happened on October 7th was evil and a tragedy. But we also believe that the over 40,000 Palestinians that have been killed is absolutely wrong as well. But I'm speaking to young people right now who are protesting right now, who are calling President Biden a Zionist. Did you hear what the former president said about Palestinians? He's name calling people Palestinians. That's what he's using as the derogatory term. He's calling them Palestinians. So are you going to be better off if former President Trump is our president? Do you want to just sit it out? Here's what I'd say to you, that sometimes we have to really stand next to our values. And I do believe that there are many people who support President Trump, who believe that he's God ordained. There are many people that believe strongly, I'm one of those, in the sanctity of life. And so they are really supportive of the former president because they believe he's being used by God to pull us back from the brink of liberalism. I would say to you that there is a legitimacy to that concern. And so I'm not going to ignore that there are not any concerns that people have about a liberal political elite running this country. I think none of us has the answer by ourselves. Collectively, we do have those answers. And Tommy Lewis and I hope that you all will consider and continue these diversity conversations over the next 4 weeks while we're out golfing, enjoying vacations with our families, and looking forward to getting back to you. Tommy, you got the final word.
Again, thank you all every weekend for joining us Saturday mornings. For some, it's earlier than others, but thank you for joining the community. As Eric said, continue these diversity conversations. We'll see you in about 4 to 5 weeks, beginning of August, to kick off the academic year, to kick off the fall season, to kick off another series of diversity conversations. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take care.
Love you.